The inmate and I were fighting for about 45 seconds, seemed like an hour, but it was enough for him to pick me up, throw me against the wall, have the shovels fall on me, stand up, try to hit me again, drag me around the room, and then we both fell to the ground. And as I looked up, an officer who just started the department, only been working for less than a month, was standing there with an MK9, which is a pepper spray dispenser. And I could tell that he didn't know what to do. He didn't know whether to shoot the inmate or not. The inmate was starting to grab me again. I grabbed him by the hair and pulled his head up, and I told the officer, go ahead and spray him, even though I knew we were both going to get hit. Well, he hit the inmate right in the face, and it bounced right into mine. And so I took about as much spray as the inmate did, and I burned for the whole night.
I went slamming to my knees on the pavement, and then the inmate somehow landed on my back, and my other coworker landed on his back. And then she ended up pulling the inmate off, and I ended up rolling with her.
You know, you hear of attacks by a dog, and that's what it reminded me of. I was screaming.
He bit her in several places.
And then he just didn't let go of the last one, which I have a scar on me about like that, the size of a quarter, where his bite was. It went right through my uniform and everything.
I was assaulted by 2 Mexican Mafia associates on the 3rd tier. I was beat up real bad. They picked me up and were trying to throw me off the tier. I was able to pull my handcuffs out and was able to lock one handcuff on the rail. And as I went over, I was able to apply the other handcuff on my left wrist. So I dangled up there for a short time. Plus I was bleeding pretty bad from my face, forehead mostly, and the blood was obstructing my view and stuff, so. Hey, I was thinking of survival.
He was facing the wall. He had his hands behind him. My partner was behind him. He went to put the cuff on, and at that point, when he put the cuff on, he just made a sudden move and came with his hand and hit me right on the head.
Just walking through the middle of the day room, right out of the blue, man. He's leaned forward, wham, and just kicked me right in the groin area.
And when he hit me again on the neck, I felt like a sharp twinge or something, and I fell on the floor. I ended up pretty much under the desk here.
I noticed he had cut marks on his hand, so as I was uncuffing him, that half a second hesitation to see why, in my mind, it's going, why is he bleeding? Because he wasn't bleeding a second ago. That's when, boom, I got hit. Something like that happens so fast, it takes a minute for your brain to process that you, like I said initially, I thought I was punched until I saw the blood. And then I realized that he put blood on the weapon, so I had to test, had to go for hepatitis C test for up to a year.
Well, an inmate, again in full restraints, came up to me with a question, and as I was answering it, I was seated. He stood up and slashed my face.
If I ever visualized a killer look, that is what I saw. And I'll never forget the look in his eyes when he was looking at me.
When I got a phone call that there was a riot out here, that my daughter had been injured and they were taking her to the hospital, it was, I think my heart was in my throat and I felt sick.
I was really mad that this guy did this. Excuse me. I have kids. I had to explain it to them. And they didn't understand.
I have a daughter, and her initial reaction was, "You're not going back over there. We don't want you over there. That's, you know, I don't want you to get hurt again." And she was pretty scared. You know, she told me, "Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be there with all those mean guys?" And I told her it's my job.
I was exposed to HIV, hepatitis A, B, and C. It was a real emotional time for the last 6 months for me. If your kid fell off their bike and had a bloody knee, it was like, let me glove up, I don't want to touch him. It was a bad feeling. But then I'm over that now, pretty much now.
It's really, really hard to have someone working in a prison when you love them as much as I love my daughter.
I was scared, and I didn't want to be scared. I loved my job, and I loved the people I worked with. They were really great people, and now I had a fear that I didn't have before.
"6 months after being injured, Tammy Hanlon was one of the officers who responded when rival gangs went to war on Pelican Bay's B Yard. It would be one of California's bloodiest prison riots.
You could almost sense an evil presence. It was really something. It was almost like a cloud of wickedness basically came down this yard.
On that particular day, numerous weapons were used. Over 100 weapons were discovered afterwards.
12 minutes from start to finish. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever been in a fight, but 10 seconds is long. This was 12 minutes of gunfire and tear gas and batons swinging. And I mean, I went over to the gate here when I used to work at the clinic. That's when it happened. And I pulled the dead body off the yard. And it just, all that violence, I guess, just kind of, after that day, just kind of permeates your being, you know, and it affects you.
And it required the response of all the staff at this prison. There was a group of approximately 30 officers out there just for their training. They came on to the yard without any equipment, but they were at least here to assist us in restraining the inmates once they got down.
It was like a war zone out here. I had never seen anything like it in my life. There were so many inmates fighting and they wouldn't stop. And I had a big canister of OC, like a fire extinguisher, and I hosed down many inmates. And they would just get down for a second and jump right back up and begin fighting again. We
continued to tell them to stop. They didn't. They would get down for a moment, then they would get back up when they could see that we were still outnumbered by them.
Nothing fazed them. The shots fired didn't faze them. There was an inmate really badly injured, and he was laying on the grass, and I bent down, and I was shaking so bad just to touch him or get that close to him. And he told me, you know, that I was shaking worse than he was, and he was injured pretty bad. And I told him, I said, well, that's because last time I was out here, one of you guys punched me. And he said, you know, oh, I'm sorry, that was you.
And they continued until I think one of the inmates got shot. And when he got shot, that pretty much slowed him down.
"35 inmates were stabbed or injured in the fighting, requiring over 1,000 stitches.
And I remember there was officers that were actually crying, you know, and I remember hugging a few. You could just sense something out here. It was terrible.
Every one of those officers is subject to it out there. And that's what these officers need to know. The new ones coming in especially need to know that you could be subject to being assaulted, and it could, you know, change your whole life.
There's nothing like going to your own fellow officer's funeral. It's like the worst thing that could happen, and it happened.
I want to go home tonight. I want to be safe, I want to do the right thing, and I want to make sure that whoever I work with, along with myself, walk out that gate. Then it'll be a good shift, regardless what happens in between.
If it's your day, it's going to be your day. I tell everybody I didn't come to prison to die.